Hello, I'm Henry, and I'm in Seminar Shields, grade 5. Today I'll be presenting a presentation on the detriments of biased perspective. So my argument is having a biased perspective is not beneficial during social conflict. So here's a quick quote. Whenever I look at a person, I see a person. Not a rank, not a class, not a title. It's quoted by Chris James. So here are my major points. So biased perspective is unfair, it's incorrect, and it's offensive. If you want me to elaborate, biased perspectives are typically considered as unfair. They are widely considered as incorrect or unorthodox, and they can be seen as offensive and even be condemned by society. So unfair. Is having a biased opinion unfair? Yes. Being biased directly pertains to being unfair. And those with biased perspectives also often fall victim to making unfair decisions. However, being unfair doesn't always mean you're being biased. There's points where, something that's unfair isn't biased, but there's also times where you can be biased and unfair. For example, life isn't fair, but that doesn't mean it's not biased, or that it's biased, but rather unpredictable. So here's a quick example on how being biased can be unfair. Bias can damage research. If a researcher chooses to allow his bias to distort the measurements and observations to their reputation. When faculty are biased about individual students in their courses, they may grade some students more or less favorably than others, which is not fair to any other students. Also, just to cover how unfair can be biased and how unfair cannot be biased, a few statements of bias being unfair can go along the lines of cats are better than dogs, football is better than baseball, Apple is better than Android. These are all clear opinions and don't have many facts to back them up. However, when being unfair and not biased, stating facts, death, natural disasters, getting stopped in traffic, these points are all very unfair, but they're bound to happen and hard to prevent. Incorrect. Is having a biased perspective incorrect? Yes. Biased information or biased news outlets can tend to publish one-sided arguments to persuade a certain mindset on people. These stories manipulate people into believing whatever the author wants them to believe, which they'll do whatever it takes, create fake stories or incorrect stories. As a result, people widely exposed to this biased information, and thus the biased population increases. So here's a quick example when talking about bias as being incorrect. Hitler's beliefs were very incorrect. However, with such desperation in Germany's economy at the time, he was somehow managed to come to power and start all the horrible travesties that he did. But as you can see, becoming such an influence on Germany, he was able to spread his biased ideals and perspectives and thus create an incredibly biased racist following. But Hitler's beliefs have since been deemed extremely incorrect and preposterous. So when looking at bias as incorrect in the stimulus materials, I chose the article, The Historian as a Participant. This is because the article goes in to talk about how eyewitness history can be substantially biased due to people who partake in history people who document history also partake in history and might be a part of a certain side or what happened during that point in time. Another quote saying that eyewitness history can be distinguished from memoirs, which are eyewitness accounts, not written from a historical viewpoint. And the reason he says that is because he wants to distinguish the two, because memoirs are facts, but this historical or eyewitness history can be, altered. Point 3, offensive. Is having biased opinion considered offensive? Yes, biased remarks have to do with very controversial topics such as gay rights or fat shaming or just being in general, or seem very offensive. Political careers can be ruined just because of a minor slip up or racist comment, because people do not want their political leader to be racist or have any biased remarks whatsoever. Because nowadays no one likes a racist or a hater because of their toxic behavior. So much so that that people who are overly racist, neo-Nazis, for example, become condemned or ripped from society, like, locked up. So here's some examples how bias is offensive. If someone is biased towards women, they might display the bias by hiring a man or a more qualified woman. So even though the woman was more qualified, he preferred the man to do the job. If someone is biased towards a certain religion, it might show it by making rude or insensitive comments, or even go as far as vandalizing religious buildings. That, to an extent, can get, whoever does things like that condemned or, sent to jail, which, just shows you how being biased can really affect someone, just ruin their lives. If someone is biased towards same-sex couple, they might discriminate against them by refusing interest in club or hotel, Everyone allows access to these, party places, so there's no reason that being gay or whatever else should deny access. So here's another stimulus material example, but for this time an offensive. I chose Attitudes Towards Muslim Women in the West. The author, Leah Abdul Lughad, was interviewed, and she talked about how, after 9/11, how Muslims were seen as people just completely changed. And, now they are always prosecuted and, offended by people, quote, the hypocritical feminism of the public administration. So in conclusion, is having bias perspective beneficial during social conflict? No. All bias perspectives fall into one or more of these negative categories: unfair, incorrect, or offensive. Whilst in social conflicts is best to speak as fair as possible to avoid being seen as biased. People who fall guilty to having biased opinions on a regular basis can be avoided of making any important decisions. So, leaders, they're not going to be elected if they're biased or if they show that they're biased. This is because their opinions are not socially acceptable and unfavorable among the general population. Therefore, I conclude that biased perspectives are not beneficial during social conflict. Thanks.
All right. Yes, I do have a question. All right. So, how did you select the strategies you used to gather your information and conduct your research? And were those strategies effective?
Okay, so my strategies to conduct my research were rather simple. I just looked online for reliable sources that had credible authors and used the research that was provided in these articles to present my own research. And I said that was rather effective in the means of quick and accessible, but not effective in the means that the internet is flooded with so many not usable resource or non-reliable sources. So, if I were to pick up a book, for instance, I could have, guaranteed reliable information.
Okay. So how does your conclusion respond to any of the research or sources you examined?
Okay, so my conclusion can correlate to the conclusions of other research that, might be similar to my topic, because, the conclusion I made is the same that most of the articles I read made, because, no one likes a biased person. So by correlating the two conclusions, I can create a stronger argument with, more facts to back it up, and just create a more presentable argument or presentation.
Okay. All right.